Okay, so today's Nam Academy, we're talking about something very important. We're talking about something called prayer mechanics. Last week we talked about meditation mechanics. Today we're talking about prayer mechanics. And if you're bothered by the term prayer, that's okay. Lots of people have trauma, all sorts of stuff. We can also use the word intention setting. Whatever floats your boat, but I'll refer to it in both ways. Fundamentally, a lot of recovery is about building what we call dhyan, building our ability to concentrate, to focus, to notice, connect inside our bodies. Our mind is like an antenna. Our mind is like an antenna. So any antenna does two things. An antenna receives signals, and that's what most people just think about. You know, like the radio. You turn on your car, music turns on, that's signals coming in. Every antenna also has the ability, just change some of the wires to put signals out. Takes up more power, it's a change. It's a different system, but it's the same system. Can do both. So you can get signals going out too. The trouble that people have, so this is true. This isn't like Dr. Gill's opinion. This is pretty much been known for millions of years, or at least thousands of years, I should say. So the systems of religion or other spirituality and all that stuff is really about this process of in and out. The human body, the mind and the body form the antenna. The mind and the body form the antenna. The mind and the body give us choice. This is a choice. Do you put something out? Do you receive something? That's a choice. Like any antenna, there's high quality. I remember one of my cousins, or my cousin's husband. He's like an antenna engineer, something radio engineer from India. It turns out they have very advanced antennas in India. So it was like looking at our cell phone towers. Like this is like 10, 20-year-old technology. In India, it's like cutting edge. I don't know what that all means, but it's really complex and lots to it. This is, whereas the things we have here in Canada, they're not as cutting edge. So there's grades of antenna. There's really, really, really sensitive antennas that can receive a lot, and then there's really, really weak antennas that can't receive much, can't put out much. One of the ways in which the antenna gets a lot weaker is through, things that like make it all bendy. Imagine if your antenna's wing is like, in Punjabi you said dingy, like twisted. Well, if the antenna is twisted, it's not going to put out a clear signal. Think of your car. You think your car, the car antenna they used to have on the car? If it's twisted, do you think it's going to pick a signal? It won't. It won't be able to. Or it won't be able to at an efficient rate. So, drugs, alcohol, substances, they impair the antenna. But not just that, though. I mean, trauma will make your antenna poor. If your nutrition is poor, so like not enough food, right? If you're B12 deficient, B1 deficient, vitamin B5, riboflavin, when you're deficient in nutrients, your mind doesn't work as good. It's not as good of an antenna. It can't send and receive the signals. Trauma, bad things happening to you, what that does, inevitably what it does, is it creates numbness. So you can't feel in your body as a protection, because those feelings are so overwhelming that it's not safe to do that. So your body just stops feeling. What that does is that reduces your sensitivity. Your signals are coming in. So I get lots of people, they come and they do lens or we do a meditation. They're like, yeah, that didn't work for me. I didn't feel anything. Some even go so far as say, can we do something else? Because this doesn't work for me. Breathing doesn't work for me. And what that is that's a mind-body disconnection. That's how trauma twists the antenna. And so today, what we're going to talk about is prayer mechanics, but we have to understand how this fits into the whole of recovery, because the recovery is the optimization of everything. Optimizing all of these factors and all the other factors, there's lots more. Having like isolation. Most people with really good antennas have had teachers, they've had people who teach them things. They go and do some yoga, or they go and there's all sorts of things people can do. They can fast, and there's like a million things, rituals, ceremonies, to straighten it out. But what do you do with it? That's the subject of today. Recovery is not just, includes optimizing these things, but that's not all it is. Lots of people mistake that, but I get questions, right? Like, okay, I fixed this, I fixed this, I fixed this, I fixed this, I fixed this. Why am I still upset? Why am I still bothered? Why is my life not where I want it to be? The reality is, there's been a lot of blind spots, and there's a lot of things that are missed. And here's why. We've talked about subconscious and we talk about consciousness, right? You've seen me draw this graph, right? Subconscious space, subconscious, things we know, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ, things that we know and things we don't know, that we don't remember, that we are not on our mind. And you see me draw it like they're similar size, but then I always say this, the reality is it's closer to this. Really, really small conscious space, really, really big subconscious space. But I'm actually going to tell you something more today. The reality is we're talking trillions or more times bigger. So subconscious, if this is like 10 units, the subconscious is probably like way bigger. And however many zeros you put is probably not quite enough. Subconscious is way bigger than the conscious space. So when people they do recovery, they do it consciously. They do their trauma work to the best of their ability. They've done their inner child work, and they think they've done it all, but why are they still upset? And the reality is that what they've done what they can consciously, but it's going to be many lifetimes. Like millions of lifetimes. That's a lot of zeros. If you do 100 units every day of work, well, that's good for this, but then that's a lot of zeros. That means 100 units a day, there's 365 days in a year. There's on average 80 years of life in a human in some countries. That's still not, maybe you can do like this much. But look at how much is left. So this is what we call working hard but not smart. You can't correct trillions and trillions of units of corruption 100 units a day. You can try it and it'll make you feel good, but you will still be miserable. You will still struggle. Things won't get better because what you're carrying is not a little bit of information. I'll put it in perspective for you. You forget nothing from the moment you're conceived to today. You forget nothing. Every sight, every sense, every emotion, every feeling, what mom and dad were doing when you were 4 weeks in the womb. If you concentrate, you can get there. Depending on what your belief system is, you can get into past lives. You may not believe that, but, so think about that. Every second of every day of your whole life is stored in ultra high definition. I got a new phone. I 128 gigabytes. I was like, they didn't have the 256, and they were like, yeah, it's all sold out. I was like, okay, I'll take the 128. I didn't know. That's not much data anymore. The operating system takes 90 gigabytes. What's done is done, but it's just, the thing is that there is a lot of information. The root of your problems rests somewhere in that. Somewhere in all this is like a couple of let's say 5 key roots. But you have to go through trillions of bits of information to find them. So you can try, many do. Some get lucky, not many. The vast majority fail, and then they come seeking help, which is good. But my point here is there is a better way. There is, in order to solve this problem, which is really caused by this concept of I need to know why. मैं जानना चाहता मैं क्यों इस तरह करता. I want to know why. I want to remember everything. That concept, and it's not wrong, it's your right to know. But the problem is you're trying to know things that may cost you a lot of money. If you're seeing a therapist every week for $300 an hour, they're a little bit better at finding these little things. But who has that much money? And even the people who have that much money, they don't always succeed. Lots of rich people suicide. So I'll give you the analogy. You all have computers, right? Computers. Do you know what viruses are? Computer viruses? Who's had a computer virus? Everyone? Yeah? Okay. Do you know what a virus is? Do you know how it's coded? Do you know like anything about it? But do you know much? Enough to do anything other than the obvious? No. Even my brother's a computer scientist. He learned how to do coding, and I asked him, do you know how to program a virus? He's like, no, that's a restricted class. In fact, to take that class, you have to get registered on the CSIS database. If you take the virus class, you get like listed on some registry as being a dangerous person because you know something that can be very... So no one wants to take the class, other than maybe people who want to do that kind of work. So you don't know much about viruses, but you know enough to know that, hey, I need a cure, right? I need something to fix this. So you go on Google and you find the antivirus. You find the antivirus and then you sort of install it. And then you hit the run button because it's made for dummies, right? It's like, and hit run. And then it runs and it takes 5 minutes. And then it finds like these, because that's what viruses do, right? Viruses, they put little bits of information, corruption, in all the right places. It makes your computer slow, but it steals your information. But when you try to find it, there's like so much data, so many files. I tried this. I tried to like find file by file. I spent like 8 hours and I achieved nothing. And my brother was like, just install an antivirus. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're for. So the thing is, you don't know much about viruses, but you know enough to get some help. And then what's the antivirus? Do you know much about that? Do you know how that's coded? Do you know how to program that? Do you know much about any of that? And the answer is you don't know that either. And you could even go to school for like 9 months, and you still won't know anything practical. You know, there's a lot of Google doctors out there. People who they Google all their symptoms. They come to the doctor and they say, I think I have this. They may be right, they may be wrong, but Google doesn't make a doctor, right? A lot of training, a lot of experience, a lot of time. 10 years it takes just to start. And then any doctor will tell you after it takes another 10 years to get comfortable working with that. There's no fast road to becoming a doctor. There's no fast road to becoming a virologist that can code a computer. So you install the antivirus, it finds the things, it addresses the issues, and all of a sudden your computer is working better. Even though you don't know much about computers, even though you don't know much about viruses, even though you don't know much about antiviruses, but you were able to solve the problem. Because you gave up the desire to know why. You just want the results. You want your computer to go faster. And the same thing is true of your life. You want your life to go better. You don't want to be all prickly. You don't want to be all upset. You don't want to... So the same rules apply. This system, the subconscious, has rules. It has things about it. It has systematized ways. It categorizes good things, bad things, resource things. It has... it's a very complex system. It's very organized. You don't understand it. But it's not working good because you're not sleeping. You're drinking and drugging. You're bothered. You can't get in a relationship without sabotaging it. You're angry, you're depressed, you're whatever the symptom of the corruption of your subconscious is someone else's fault. Everyone thinks it's someone else's fault, and not wrong, but we have to own our part of it. And the reality is, it's the same problem. There's a problem. You don't know how to fix it, so you go to the therapist. But the trouble is the therapist, when you go to the therapist, they're just like you. Right? You go to a therapist, and if the therapist isn't a trauma therapist, then or an experienced, a wise therapist, I'll say, not experienced doesn't mean much, a wise therapist who's done their own work on themselves, they're going to try to figure this out with that. And it's the same problem. I've had people go to psychoanalysis for like 20 years, people who have money, right? Every week, once a week, analyzing, why is this? Why is that? And at the end of 20 years, obviously they're seeing me, so something wasn't quite fixed. And then we do something, and they're like, this is the deepest I've ever gone in just a session. I've done 10 years of analysis. Because this problem applies. It's not bad. It's good to go to therapists, but any trauma therapist, what they learn is they learn to think with their subconscious. They learn to trust their intuition. We call that attunement. And they use that to kind of guide them, to these areas. But even then, they can get in the ballpark, but there's a lot of information in that little bit, right? Trillions, right? We're talking still pretty large chunks of information, so it takes a lot of time. So, prayer mechanics. Because if an antivirus is how you deal with viruses in your computer, learning to straighten your antenna, you don't understand the makeup of this antenna. You don't know how this is corrupting it, other than that it is. So what you can do is you can fine-tune and use your ability to communicate. And so we call that intention setting in prayer. And here's how it works. Every human has the ability to put out a signal, a desire into the world. There's something called law of attraction. You heard of that? Law of attraction? I want a new car, I want a new car, I want a new car, I want a new car. And then a new car comes. That's called the law of attraction. I want to learn, and then a teacher comes. I want money, and I want money, I want money. Money comes. And if it's not what you need, along with it comes a lot of problems, right? Marrying rich isn't always a good idea, for example. Most people who marry for the money, they usually regret it not too long after. So that the thing is that that's just a practice of intention setting, of praying. So you pray. And what do? When you pray, you set out a signal. That signal goes out. And then the universe responds to the signal. There's an energy. There's a let's say the signal, the antenna puts out 10,000 units of signal. You pray for something, you want a new car. And let's say new car costs you, I'm just making this stuff up, but let's say a new car costs you 1,000 units. You will get your new car. That's kind of how it works. Let's say, a lot of people do this. I pray for world peace. A lot of people pray for world peace. Okay, so world peace, that's good. World peace that might be a 10 trillion unit proposition. So you pray for that, then, you put your 10,000 units of prayer into that. It helps. It really does. It brings it closer. It minus 10,000 units now. It's still a really big number, and if all you ever do for the rest of your life is pray for world peace, it's going to take a while, and it may not happen. The result may not happen, but the difference will. But if you have 1 million people praying all at the same time, that's why Christmas is a lovely time of year. Lots of prayers in the air. Lots of people just like kind of wishing well. I know it's also a traumatic time of year, but there is a nice energy to these massive holidays, Eid. These times when millions or billions of people are doing the same thing. That's what it is. Lots of people asking for similar things, and magical things can happen. Let's say you're praying for family, family reunification. Well, that might be like, maybe that's like $1 million, maybe 1 million unit prayer. That's good. So now it's going to take 10,000 units minus 1 million. That's 900,000, 990,000. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so 3 years. You do that 1,000 times, and maybe you'll see some progress. What I'm trying to illustrate to you is that this is kind of generally how it works. If you pray for things that you don't need, you can get what you don't need. That's why they say, don't take God's name in vain. Don't just pray for silly things. Pray for what you really need. Don't pray for what you want, because you'll get what you want, but then what you want is going to bring trouble. So there's caution. If you pray for change too quickly, faster than you're ready, it may come. You may be hurt. The thing is, though, don't discount the power of your prayer, because your prayer, this is just something from across religions, across spiritualities. These are just some things that, you don't have to believe everything I say. But what you're doing is you're engaging in sort of very large energy. So prayer, intention setting, engages large energy that works in really big numbers. So let's say it works in the infinite. Lots of people say that the universe is infinite. God is infinite. Higher power is infinite. Really, really big. So trillion is not a big number for the infinite. Million and trillion isn't that different for infinite. And that's why prayer can cause really remarkable changes. Because a trillion is suddenly very doable. It's very possible to start figuring out some deep things. This is why whole systems of recovery are based on prayer. AA, 12-step programs. There's not one 12-step program. There's like 30 of them. Emotions Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Codependency Anonymous, Chronic Pain Anonymous. It's not just Alcohol Anonymous. It's Cocaine Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous. The reason there's a lot of these programs is because they work by this concept of applying prayer to your mental health. And so, if we're looking at the antenna, so okay, what about like a healing of like difficult childhood? Well, maybe that's like a $10 million unit proposition. May take some time, but doable. You can upgrade your antenna. So the antenna can be upgraded. There are some things that strengthen the antenna, its ability to communicate. Some of those things involve concentration, dhyan, the more you focus, the more you can do. There's ways you can build concentration, like yoga, daily practice. You can go to a teacher. There's ways you can learn. You can upgrade your antenna by owning your part of the problem. Humility, surrender. That's why this is a big part of healing. Saying, yeah, I was wrong too. It strengthens the system. There's certain things, religions, systems of prayer that are tested. So life is all, everyone's like trying to make their own adventure here. And I have no opinion on that. Whatever floats your boat, man. But there's systems of prayer that have been used for thousands and thousands of years. Systems that work. If you're trying to find a needle in a very, very big haystack, lots and lots of places, right? You could be searching a long time, but there's ways. So if you're a Christian, and you're raised a Christian, and you can, that fits with your mind, exploring it will give you access to more ways to power the prayer. So things like practice, like mantras and things. So if you put in, if you're wanting to put out a prayer, doing 20 minutes of like meditation before you do it, relaxing, getting into a good headspace, will improve your concentration. It'll increase the power. So serenity prayer, affirmations, whatever. Positive things to get into a good head state, a very giving head state, connecting to source, whatever that means to you. You'll power it up. So you can upgrade your antenna. So maybe it's not 10,000 units, maybe it's 1,000,000. Now all of a sudden you have more ability. But one thing any of these things will not do this will all lead you to a choice. Will you ask for help? If you're into intention setting, will you ask to get help? That's a choice. No one can make that choice for you. You can strengthen yourself lots. You can get really powerful and apply that to the very large task of world peace. But the thing is, you have to actually ask for things to get better. So if you have a very hurt mind, with all the trauma, with all the problems, lots of intergenerational things, you still have to ask. You have to make that choice. Yeah, I got separated from my kid. I feel really guilty about that. put that kid through lots. Most people would prefer not to even think about that. Yeah, it happened, it's done, but it still hurts you, it still eats you up inside. So you make a choice. My prayers go something like this. Vaheguruji, please heal whatever things that I do to hurt myself or others. Consciously or unconsciously, directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally. Heal them at the root. And what that is that sets up a target that may be 10 million units. Some targets will be easier, others will be slower. But the thing is a daily practice of meditation is to curate your antenna, but it always leads to a choice. And lots of people do this. They don't make the choice to ask for help. They ignore the prayer component of recovery. They don't go anywhere there. Maybe dad was religious and he was a jerk. I don't want to touch that. Or maybe some religious guy screwed him over. I don't know. You guys, the thing is, lots of things get in the way of asking for help and making that choice. But until you make that choice, I'm just here to tell you that you don't need to be a priest to pray. You don't need to be a priest to bless someone. You don't need to be you're worthy of all that. That's why, Christians, they always say this. Man is made in the image of God, right? You have this divinity. People ask me all the time, why do you like working with addicts? I love working with people with addiction. There's divinity there. People who are really hurt have to really go deep to heal. What better energy? I would rather be here than anywhere else. This is my people, So don't sell yourself short. A lot of people in recovery, we specialize in treatment-resistant recovery, and all they ever do is they optimize these things. And so taking it one step further so they can actually benefit from all that hard work, it's not a big step. If you've worked for years to heal, you've done your seva, your service work, that's all there, right? It all works in this model. A battery. All that good stuff you do, all those recovery things, they build up your battery. And if you don't use it entirely, the battery does go down. But just by doing all that work, filling up your battery does not automatically result in the use of that battery. You got to put that battery into something. You got to put it into a motor, and the motor is going to run. You got to put it in your car is going to start. You got to put it in, use the energy. Recovery is not simply the building of this energy. Recovery is the building. So building and using for healing. So you can pray for your own healing. And then gather some more. Do it again. Different things. Things that don't hurt anymore, you don't have to focus on that. Focus on the triggers. There's lots of videos. There's a video on trigger-based healing. This is what we're talking about. And I'm just here to tell you that a really fast way, you can spend this energy on analyzing why. You can spend a lot of time and energy on that, or you can spend it on praying for healing. And maybe you go over here for when you're blocked and nothing's working. Yeah, go get a therapist. I'm not saying go get a therapist. I'm just saying, embrace your power. Because a therapist can't do the work for you, but a therapist can figure out the blocks, what you're missing. Very good use of therapists that way. or recovery communities in general. So I think those are some of the concepts that come to mind. Questions around this important topic? I apologize if I offended anybody, that's not my goal. But we do need to talk about prayer. We need to talk about these things that most people think are like, not for them. Lots of people feel unworthy. They think it's your body. You can do what you like with it. You need to do you need to do what you like with it. Questions, comments.
I really appreciated the part about we don't need to necessarily know the underpinnings of how things work in order for them to work. So, thank you for that.
Does that make sense why that's true?
Yes.
Everyone wants to know, why am I like this? Actually, the first stage is I don't want to know anything, and I just want to blame everybody for why I'm horrible. That's the first step, right? And then it's I want to know, and then it hurts to know, so you go back to I don't want to know, right? But then you kind of become serious, and then you want to know, and you're willing to put up the discomfort. And I'm just trying to say that you can bypass that just by applying the virus analogy. So the computer virus, the antivirus here is, powers that be, universe. You don't even have to, you just intention set. You just say, may this be okay. That's quite sufficient. You don't have to reference anything. The thing is that we just have to ask and not be too upset at the answer. And I'll have a different lecture on some specific ways. Today was just about some of the factors that affect the prayer and some of the things about it. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Every prayer has a strength, and you can use that to buy certain kinds of things. And why sometimes people pray for things and they're a common thing I hear is yeah, I lost faith in religion because I would pray and nothing would happen. Right? My dad was horribly abusive or something like that, and I prayed every day that wouldn't happen, but it did, and lose faith. But the thing is, external prayers, changing someone else, that's beyond your control. So, it just drives up the cost. It drives up, and it may just take a lot longer. Maybe it's not meant to be. You have your own journey. Your journey is independent of anyone else's journey. But a kid can't know that. But that's something you have to work it out in your head. Talk to a priest. Talk to a recovery community. Really resolve the issue you have with these words. Make your own words. Antennas, setting out the intentions, signals. Make your own words. If religion bothers you, go, just figure it out. But don't stick your head in the sand. I see so many people stick their head in the sand saying, I don't want what they had, so I'm just going to sit here and suffer. That's a trauma response. I'm going to suffer so they feel sad. That's a trauma response. Doesn't work. But it is a very common way that people are stuck. So, good comment. Thank you. Other comments? Questions? Skepticisms. Dr. Gill, you're wrong. I like hearing that one. You guys don't say that so much. It'd be good. Any other comments?
Another thing I appreciated is that we can start right now because we don't need to know how everything came out to be the way it is right now. We don't need to do all that excavation. What we could do, that gives us the choice to start right now with what we can do. And that's very empowering because if I can start right now and take this opportunity of the present moment to set an intention or practice my daily practice and repeat that builds in its units of impact.
Yes. This is something that you have to prove for yourself. It's not like faith. Yeah, faith. Faith builds, right? But actually, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say this anyways. Faith is built scientifically. No human exists that does not build their faith without practical kind of practice. No one of true faith has not experimented. So if what I'm saying is true, you pray for something, it should happen. This memory keeps bothering you, pray for its healing for a few weeks and see if it doesn't bother you anymore. If you picked a big one, it may still, but it'll be different though. If I'm right. And if you prove it to yourself, what you'll do is that'll give you a dopamine hit, and you'll want to keep improving your antenna. Ask for more, ask for different. If you make a mistake and you ask for something that wasn't that great, then change how you asked for it. If you ask for, I don't want to feel this feeling anymore, and the fastest possible way, well, you might be surprised. Your mind works like Google. Your mind works like Google. What you put into Google is what you get out. So if you put in world peace, you're going to get like 1 million hits. But if you put world peace with gold and blue colors and this and that, you'll get fewer and fewer hits. And you know what? We have like 80 people a week suiciding. We have in Canada. We have a lot of people dying of addiction. We have a lot of suffering, a lot of really, really difficult times. So we actually need to step up, every one of us, and be empowered to do what we can. And yes, you can start now. Start with the experimentation. I'm not saying dredge up the deepest emotions and things, but you can pray around your triggers. Triggers are already out there. This happened, it bothered you. You can try that. May powers that be, universe, Waheguru, Allah, whatever, Jesus, heal this thing. And maybe whatever roots caused it. In a safe way, even if that means slowly or without me knowing. See if that does anything. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, then just tell me. I'd be curious. I'd be very curious. So, prayer mechanics. A bit of a longer lecture, but it was a good one. Thank you. And again, if I misspoke, please, my apologies.